Lance Peterson, PAG.
Jeremy Moore, ADOT.
Jamie Brown with PAG.
Environmental quality.
Paul Casertano, Pima County Transportation.
Catherine Skinner, Pima County Transportation.
Sonia Kelly with PAG.
Jeanette Wren with PAG.
And then online we have Emerald.
Good morning. This is Amirul from ADOT, Traffic Safety.
Casey. Cassie, I'm sorry.
Hi, good morning. Cassie Lundeen with Pima County Community and Workforce Development.
Jason.
Jason Bai with Pasquiyaki Tribe.
Jennifer.
Jennifer Hilbert with ADOT Multimodal Planning Division.
Alti. And did I miss anybody online?
You just.
Yeah.
Mike, can you hear us?
I can confirm. I could not hear until just at that last
Okay.
second. There was a gap for 20 seconds or so, but yeah, Mike Colty with Kimley Horn supporting Emerald and the safety targets for the state impact.
I believe I got everybody. So moving on to item number 2, in-kind reporting. Jeanette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you're paid with federal dollars, please let us know now or by the end of the meeting. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. Time spent working on PAG RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. And Zonia, is a sign-in sheet going around? It's in the back. Sign-in sheet's in the back. We'll send it around and please sign and document your time for us.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Going on to item number 3, approval of the March 19th, 2025 meeting summary. Everybody get a chance to take a look at it? Any comments, questions? There are none. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
We got a second. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed by saying nay. Ayes have the majority. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4. Review and recommend approval of the PAG Transportation Improvement Program TIP Amendment number 2025.010. Adam.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Each year around springtime, FTA apportionments to our region are announced and programming exercise takes place in the transit working group to program those funds. TIP Amendment 2025.010 is the vehicle to program those changes for fiscal 24 FTA 5307, 5337, 5339, and STBG Flex funding. I should add that as we look at all the changes that are programmed in the transit working group, we look at what might be different from what's been put into the TIP development or into the TIP from the previous TIP development cycle. And so these changes just reflect the ones that are different from what was already there. Today, we are looking for recommendation for approval from this committee, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Adam. Is there any questions from the committee? On that one?
So it's my understanding that we're on hold with these things because of conformity. Can we get and how are we going about approving this if that is still the case?
No, absolutely. Great question. And so what happens basically is we're trying to time this, like we are absolutely on, we're restricted from either PAG or ADOT making changes, formal amendments to the TIP or the STIP related to PAG projects until we're finished with the air quality conformity lapse grace period. I've only said that about 1,000 times in the last 6 months. So what happens is we're trying to time this to where it can run concurrently through the committee process so that it's ready and we minimize any lag. So as soon as we get that air quality conformity determination, they lift that lapse grace period, then we're ready to go ahead and go and program these funds. So it's really just a logistics exercise more than anything else. We're not able to take formal regional council action until that grace period is gone away. So we're thinking about doing a provisional amendment or a provisional motion to grant executive director powers to complete it as soon as we have the ability to.
Okay, I would just ask that the minutes reflect all of that.
Sure.
Thank you.
And in the memo itself, it does, I believe, address the fact that we have a conformity determination that would impact this, but well, now the minutes will also reflect it.
Okay, thank you. Catherine?
Kind of following along with what Natalie asked about it being a provisional status and you're trying to shepherd these in a parallel fashion, not to lose time. I'm curious why a similar approach isn't being used for the county's raise grant, because that is one of the TIP amendments that has not been processed, even though it's still on the website, and we're eagerly awaiting its incorporation into the TIP.
That's a great question, Catherine, Mr. Chair. What's going on with that is that is not a formal process for PAG's consideration. It's a formal at the ADOT level. And so we don't have any authority to run that concurrently effectively. As soon as the air quality grace lapse, you know the thing. As soon as that's done, basically we're going to reintroduce that to ADOT as an administrative modification through PAG. And then they'll take it back through their processes at ADOT. So we're not beholden to the 3-committee process. And here, per our policy procedures, or for our TIP policy and procedure, the level of changes are enough that it needs to be a formal. Did that make any sense? Sorry, I felt like that was a little bit of word salad.
I understand your answer.
Okay.
I continue to have concerns with the fact that the online TIP is reflecting an amendment that was not approved by FHWA. And I don't know why that hasn't been corrected. And I just want to make sure that it does not get lost in the shuffle in any way, because it's a super important $20 million for a regional project.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll follow up as far as its presence in the TIP currently and get back to you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we had communicated with FHWA to try to make an appeal to that decision because it was really sort of a procedural issue. We submitted that administrative amendment prior to the commencement of the air quality lapse grace period in January. And so it just wasn't effectuated because of ADOT stopping or holding its STIP and freezing it for the next 5-year construction program. So it was just a timing issue. So we were trying to appeal that. I think our understanding was we were going to continue to appeal, but yeah, we'll look into that, Ms. Skinner. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, I remember reading something about that. You guys were going to get back to us on that item that Catherine brought up. Any other further questions? Ellie?
Could we possibly get an update on what's going on with conformity? As of yesterday, I learned that things are still in flux. I don't fully understand what the holdup is. It does seem like it's going on much longer than we anticipated. So would we be able to get an update on that with this agenda item?
Yes, I think Janelle, can you address that?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Natalie, I'll give an update on that in the RMAP agenda item at the end of the meeting today, and Dustin's here. He can answer questions at that time. So we'll give you an update on where that stands before we conclude today.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Dan. Any further questions? Anybody online, any questions? Hearing none, this is an action item. I'll entertain a motion. Anybody?
The motion that's in the packet does not have the provisional language that is suggested. Can PAG staff suggest what the appropriate motion should be?
This is a motion to recommend approval from this committee
Yep.
to take it up to management. So there's no provisionality as far as this committee is concerned. You're just asking them to approve it
Recommend
in
approval.
the next committee.
Well, I think it's important in the form of the motion. I mean, we are aware that this can't actually happen, the TIP amendment, until a process is completed. And so I think it's appropriate in the motion. So I'm happy to make the motion that TIP amendment 2025.010 be taken to the next committee. But it is a provisional approval pending the air conformity analysis.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Again. Item number 5, review transportation art by youth. Tabby.
Is there a speaker here yet?
I heard her, when we did introductions. Cassie, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, thank you, Casey. This is the transportation art by youth program application. Lance.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. Today, I'm pleased to be here this morning to bring to you the City of South Tucson's Transportation Art by Youth 2025 project. I do want to make a note that in their application, they had a location listed as 4th Avenue and 29th Street, which we have moved to 29th Street and 11th Avenue to meet the functional classification requirement of minor arterial. So that'll be reflected in Cassie's presentation. But with that, this program is for City of South Tucson in conjunction with Los Artes. And so Cassie from Los Artes will be presenting their proposed project. And this is for your review and approval. So thank you. Cassie, you can take it away.
Okay, do you have the presentation, Lance, ready to go, or did you want me to share that?
But loaded and ready. There we go.
And apologies, I'm not seeing the presentation on my screen, but the Las Artes Arts and Education Program is located within South Tucson city limits. The goal of the overall program is to provide education, literacy, and arts education to individuals ages 17 to 24. They learn and earn. So they earn a stipend while they attend classes to gain skills in reading, math, and language, as well as GED or general equivalency degree attainment. In addition to that, we also have a pre-apprenticeship program that runs out of Las Artes, affording individuals that are low income the skills needed to earn sustainable living employment. Next slide, please. Under their murals program, it's proposed to do 4 projects at various locations within the city of South Tucson. This was coordinated by Ms. Moreno as well as Mr. Licochea. And we look forward to partnering more with the city. We wanted to focus on the loop as well as major traffic corridors. As part of that, And to Lance's point, we coordinated a little bit more in depth than what the slide presentation shows as 11th and 29th, 6th and 29th, 4th and 36th. And then, of course, a signage on the as close to the Chuck Huckleberry Loop as possible. And Josue, I don't know if you wanted to clarify anything here as far as like the project locations.
With Lance, after there was one of the locations wasn't on the federal classification map. But just to clarify, this is not the Huckleberry Loop, it's the El Paso Southwestern Greenway, where some of these sites are connected to, but eventually they connect to the loop. So we have 4 sites right now, and there's public right of way in those areas for us to install some murals there. That's all.
Thank you. Next slide is just some information about what we have already done through Las Artes, including signage at various park locations, various modalities. The proposed projects for each of the locations is going to include the mural itself, the art supplies, as well as the framing to go in. We're going to coordinate with the city of South Tucson for their installation and upkeep and maintenance. Overall, we anticipate, of course, the 4 street murals depicting the culture and history of South Tucson. This will be done by the youth that are enrolled in Las Artes, either during the summer or currently. And of course, we'll coordinate those art projects with the city of South Tucson to make sure that they accurately reflect what the project is going to portray. And then, of course, they'll install the art pieces. And I open it up to this time to any questions, concerns, clarifications. And thank you for your consideration.
Comments? Yeah, you guys have similar murals throughout the city. Have you guys had any issues with graffiti?
It's been very minimal on the artwork pieces themselves. I know that in some areas we have had some issues with some graffiti on the backs of the artwork, in which whoever we install it for, they're the ones that are responsible for abatement. But for the most part, no, we don't have a lot of graffiti on the front facing portion of the mural.
Question? That's.
And just as a side, this is going to be 3 years worth of TABI funding, so the overall budget will be for 75,000 for this project.
Okay, if there are no other questions, this is an action item. I'd get a motion for recommendation.
So moved.
Second. We have a second. No, any other questions? Seeing none, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Say nay. Motion carries and approved. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, regional transportation revenues update. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Member of the TPC, I'm filling in for Mr. Tao today to give you the regional transportation revenues update. Let's start with Table 1 of the Regional Transportation Revenues Report. You'll see that through March, PAC has collected about $24.3 million in regional HERF, while the STBG apportionment is projected at $21 million for this fiscal year. In Table 3 and Figure 1, through March, more than $132 million in HERF and vehicle license tax was collected across the region. As I mentioned, PAC collected about $24 million, while the remaining amount was distributed to the member jurisdictions. Regional HERF revenues show a slight decrease year over year. However, 4% increase compared to the 5 years average. And moving on to table 4, shows HERF 12.6% in detail. Through March, we collected $24.3 million, which is more than 16% over the ADOT official forecast. Reporting of actuals was delayed in November and December of fiscal year 2024, which affected the year-to-year comparison. Next, table 5 shows HERF 2.6% with stronger than expected collections, totaling over $5.4 million through March. And table 6, through March, PAG had over $119 million in an account. Most of these dollars are spoken for. In table 7, we look at the city and town HERF distribution fiscal year to date. And table 8 shows HERF 12.6 and 2.6 that we have already seen in previous tables. With the addition of Pima County HERF and Pima County vehicle license tax, the portion are set aside for transportation use only. Next is table 9, which shows the amount of HERF that your city and town have received for the past 5 fiscal years, while table 10 shows us the gallons of gas sold within the Pima County boundary through various fiscal years. Keep in mind that the amounts shown are for the same year-to-date period during the previous 4 fiscal years. The region typically sees about 13% share of the statewide gasoline sales, and through March of this fiscal year, we were just under 13% for the fiscal year. Lastly is table 11, which shows that nearly $94 million has been collected in TPT through March, which trending very, very closely to the adopted budget, while showing a small increase from the same period last year. Mr. Chair, that concludes my updates today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Just have a comment on the revenue of 12.6. Looks like it's getting higher every year. I know the funds are spoken for, but doesn't look like things are moving. I mean, we're at $119 million. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I agree. I know that at the Regional Council RTA board meetings last week, they mentioned that interest is earned on 12.6. So it might be interesting to add to these updates what that interest amount is that we're earning, because that needs to be programmed for projects in a timely manner.
Well, my biggest concern is the state sweeping funds when things get hard. I remember being around in 2008, 2007, when they were looking at her funds and sweeping it into for the state troopers. That was a big concern. Anyway, it's just a comment. Okay, if there's no other questions, this is a information item only. Moving on to item number 7, ADOT safety performance projections. Mike. You online, Mike?
Yes, I am ready to go, and presentation was provided and is now being shared. I can see. I will just stop and say, Emerald, is there anything you wanted to say to lead this topic out before I jump in, or would you like me to jump in?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yep, this is supporting ADOT. Again, from the introductions, my name is Mike Colty with Kimley-Horn, and doing this as a project as part of the Strategic Highway Safety Plan for Arizona, as well as there was coordination. Really, this was done last summer. So this was all in the safety performance targets that ADOT submitted in collaboration with MPOs and others in the state. Going on to the next slide. Just want to provide some background. The annual safety performance projections and targets. This is a Federal Highway Administration requirement on the state, as well as some requirements on the MPOs specifically that I will talk about later and why we are here today. Those Federal Highway Administration required state performance safety targets are number of fatalities, number of serious injuries, the fatality rate, so the number of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and also the serious injury rate as well per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. Also, the total number of non-motorized bicycle and pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries is the other of those 5 performance measures that are required of all states and evaluated by FHWA. Going on to the next slide. Some background on the development of these projections and some of the data is what we start to look at. So we look at the trends within the prior data and really over the last 10 years to see what has been really happening with the fatalities and serious injuries and these performance measures, as well as what's been happening on the strategies and what's been implemented. So, but looking more recently at those recent fatalities trends, looking at 2023 fatalities, they decreased just under 1% from 2022. 2023 serious injuries had decreased just slightly, 0.29% from 2022, very slight decreases. The 2023 non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries decreased by just under 3% from 2022. Then also as part of the rates, we look at the vehicle miles traveled, and as we look at whether fatality and serious injuries are going up and down, we look at what is happening with the actual vehicle miles traveled, which is a primary indicator related to how many fatalities and serious injuries you'd expect. And that vehicle miles traveled is increasing an average of 1.47 from 2019 to 2023, which was the last full year we had available for that data. Going on to the next slide, running through the methodology. Annual safety targets were set based on reduction of 20% by 2030. So that is the overall overarching methodology. It supports the Arizona Governor's Office and 2024 ADOT Strategic Highway Safety Plan goal. Some background numbers, annual fatalities of 1307 in 2023 reduced 20% to 1,045 by 2030. That's kind of implementing that 20% reduction by 2030, and I will show that on a chart on the next slide. Then going on to the serious injuries as well, we'll start with a number of 3,777 serious injuries in 2023. Reducing that 20% by 2030 results in 3,021. Going down to the annual non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, 820 in 2023, reduced 20% to 676 by 2030. Going down to the reported targets, our 5-year averages calculated based on the projected annual values of 2024 and 2025 and prior values for 2021 through 2023 that are actual. And so I'll show that on the next slide as well. The actual targets are those 5-year rolling averages. Targets for fatalities and serious injuries are based on annual values and projected vehicle miles traveled. Vehicle miles traveled projections are based 2019 to 2023 5-year average change in VMT of that 1.47% growth reported on the prior year. Going on to the next slide. Just specifics, precisions, and this is just the detail that FHWA does provide guidance on the significant digits, the numbers that are used. An annual number of fatalities, serious injuries, and non-motorized are rounded to the nearest whole number for the annual number. 5-year averages for those same fatalities, serious injuries, and non-motorized are rounded to the nearest 10th decimal place. So annual numbers are to the whole number, and even those projections and the 5-year averages go to the 10th decimal places. When you're looking at the rate of fatalities and serious injuries, those are rounded to the nearest 100th decimal place, and the 5-year average is rounded to the nearest 1,000th decimal place, one more. So just recognizing that there is guidance on specifically on that reporting precision and what the numbers around to. Now I'll walk you through an example for fatalities on the next slide. So starting on the very left column, the very left column is the years with the 2019, the baseline of where we started on the bottom, going to current on the top. Those gray numbers on the bottom with black are actual numbers that were reported. Then we start our reduction of 20% from the 1307, looking on the fatalities column second to the left, to the 1,045, that 20% reduction in 2030. And we have that annual reduction as a straight line each year to get to that number. The target, however, is the 5-year rolling average. So even though that annual fatality number is reducing 20%, the actual 5-year rolling average does continue to grow because of the prior finalized numbers in 21 to 23 that were part of that 5-year rolling average, and gets to 1,263.8 there as the fatality 5-year rolling average target for 2025. Similarly, those numbers are shown for fatality rate in the middle of the chart. There, under fatality rate, going from 1.39 in 2019 to 1.73 in 2023. This, however, using that reduction in fatalities and that increase in vehicle miles traveled we talked about of 1.47, that gets us a reduction of approximately 4.3% on 2024 to 1.66 and then 1.58. And then that carries through to that 20% reduction to 1.25 in 2030. That's how it looks in a chart. I'm not going to walk through each of the targets in a graph. On the next slide, we'll go back over fatalities, but now in the chart version. So this shows fatalities going back over the past 20 years to 2005, showing how it was really high in 2005, 2006 in those boom years. Then the strategic highway safety plans nationally started in that timeline, 25, 26, and there was a lot of reductions through the Great Recession. And this is consistent nationally, and then those continue to go up. But looking at the most recent years, that shows the 1307 in 2023 of annual fatalities, reducing to 1231 annual fatalities in 2025, and that 5-year average target of 1,263.8 now in a chart format. Next slide is fatality rate. Here shows those annual numbers and get into a 2025 target of 1.58 fatalities annually for that year, and a 5-year average of 1.665 fatality rate, which is a reduction there from 1.668. Going on to the next slide, serious injuries. This, again, similar to national trends, but great to see in Arizona, serious injuries have continued to go down generally. Serious injuries are those that often require a hospital and are really considered life-changing for the victim, loss of limb or other very serious treatment. And those serious injuries, however, this is an estimate by the officer at the scene, which is being used in the state data on those serious injuries. For those numbers of serious injury, you can see projecting down to an annual number of 3,561 for the state, and a 5-year average of 3729.6. Serious injury rate, 4.58 serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and then the 4.914 is the 5-year average in the chart. Going down to our last one on the next slide, non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. 795 non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries down to 846.6 as the 5-year average. So I know a lot of numbers are running through. We can go back and go to any specific comments. But that was the end of the actual graphs. Just a summary chart on the next slide. All of that analysis rolls into the following 5 targets for that 5-year moving average. That is the federal target on the right. The baseline is what was done really 2 years prior. Actual results, which is the most recent actual results. You actually are required to either meet your target or be lower than your baseline. Even if you don't meet your target, as long as you're below your baseline, that is considered a exceeding or meeting that particular performance measure. So that would just be the one, I guess, rate of serious injuries is the only one. If you were below the baseline of 5.018, but still above your target, that would still be considered meeting that target since we're below the baseline and still having some reduction.
Interrupt, Mike.
Please go ahead.
Are we looking at the correct slide, Mr. Chair and Mike?
Oh, I'm sorry, we are not. Yeah, you are not. You missed that. The next slide is the table. It's still, yes. So I'll stay here for a second. Thank you for that question. This is that table that shows the 5-year projections on the far right. And I had called out the rate of serious injuries. That's the only one where the 5-year rolling average is actually below the baseline. You must meet one of the two below the baseline or your projection/target. And these are there for the state. I'll go on to the next slide. Make sure it transfers MPO safety projection. So this is for the state. Now on to for the MPO. The states are required to submit this in August. So there will be a new round that goes in this August. MPOs are required to follow that, and MPOs may choose to set separate projections specific for their region, so specific for the PAG region. To do that, must report the VMT estimate that was used and use the Highway Performance Monitoring System data when preparing those estimates. The projection or targets are reported to ADOT and made available to FHWA upon request. Generally, that requirement then is about the end of February, 180 days after that state, after the due date. However, I'll say MPOs can choose to set their separate targets, or they can support the state's target and not set specifics and just report back that they are supporting the state's target and not doing specific for their MPOs. And that's generally what the MPOs within Arizona and many states in the country have done throughout. So the MPO projection targets are not included in the assessment of whether a state made or made significant progress toward the meeting target. So those are some of the parameters. It is a recommendation that ADOT does recommend to PAG, and it was to MAG as well, and MAG did proceed this way, and PAG has done this in the past of adopting the state safety performance projection targets and not setting their own targets for PAG. Just included as backup in this on the next slide is the available resources that's used, and then I'll stop now for any questions or open discussion.
Based on the historical data, it looks like those targets are extremely advantageous, I'll say. So what sort of interventions is ADOT planning to actually change that trajectory? It seems, based on historical data, to be somewhat unrealistic without significant interventions being implemented.
Yeah, so that is an ongoing process and a partnership with the agencies throughout the state, primarily through the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. And there's a whole set of strategies and coordination, necessary meetings that are highlighting those critical areas within the safety data for Arizona, and how specific actions and strategies being implemented under the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, as well as part of the HSIP funding for Arizona that's being used to target in a data-driven approach to those. So I don't have that prepared for today. It's a good question, but there is a set of strategies really under the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, as well as the HSIP to target this.
Any other questions? Paul?
Thank you, Mike. This is really helpful. I've got a couple questions. So am I correct that we, as an MPO, essentially are late beyond the 180 days that was established for this round of approval? was that scheduled to have happened by end of February? And have the other MPOs stepped through that process? Are we just behind the timeline a little bit, or what's going on there?
That is I don't have the background on this, and maybe Emerald does. There was transition at ADOT. We did do this with MAG in the last fall as another process, and I do believe they documented that. My understanding is that's the case. This is past the deadline, but I don't have the history on the discussion or setting this up for this point.
And do we know, have all the other MPOs adopted the state's projected targets? I know at one point MAG was either talking about or had established their own a few cycles back, but it sounds like they are just adopting the state projections at this point. Are there any other MPOs that have deviated from that?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Catherine?
I just want to follow up because I didn't catch that as Paul pointed out. Can somebody from PAG explain why we're behind on setting this? Is what
You're done about the 180 days?
Yeah. What got in the way of us meeting that deadline?
Jeanette?
Mr. Chair, Ms. Skinner, we did receive information from PAG or from ADOT last year, and we presented it to the TPS in November. And then there was a gap in time between us and ADOT, and we received the new data with the 2024 numbers earlier this year. So the stuff that was presented to the TPS included, I think 2023, you might know, 2023, and then we got the 2024. So it was a gap in time between us getting information from ADOT and being able to present it to you. We did have 2 presentations. I believe they were late last year on the Highway Safety Improvement Program and the safety data. So it was just a timing transition. So now we have it, and we also have the newer data that Mike presented today, and we're looking to take the next step and take this new data up to Regional Council at their next meeting.
Paul?
One last question. I seem to recall in previous years, there may have been an automated adoption if there's no action taken by MPOs. Is that the case? Do we need to do this, or is it we are already considered to have adopted the state's projections because amount of time has passed?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Costantano, that is a choice. And I think that was one of the bullet points that Mike presented, that there is the do nothing option, if you will. But that we didn't do it last year. Like, we didn't have that ask on the table. So with that transition of time and us getting the information from ADOT, it was just, as they transitioned their folks and got us information, we brought it as soon as we could. So I don't know that there was an official determination by ADOT of whether we just automatically by default approved them. But, that would be a question for ADOT. But, as far as we're concerned, we're just bringing them now because we were asked to bring them now. Also, the option of approving our own targets is also there. We never have traditionally done that with the state data. Instead, what we do is do our safety performance measures in the long range plan, as you're aware. So there are those different options on the table, and we've always sort of traditionally brought them through, make sure you guys see them, make sure Regional Council sees them, make sure they're available, but not try to tinker with it and create our own projections for their data on their network. So it's where we are now. And it is good to see, the 24 and the 25, especially coming into the home stretch of the RMAP, right? Because safety is always a topic that we talk about. So to see that, their trends have changed since we saw it at the TPS, and, we're seeing changes in our performance as well. So hopefully those measures that Natalie mentioned, measures that we want to take to turn the dial and see some changes being made. Hopefully we're going to start seeing that reflected in the performance measures. I know your jurisdictions and the city have taken a lot of recent measures policy-wise and how they're going to enforce some pedestrian and bike safety. And hopefully the data will reflect that as we, as time continues, a year from now, 2 years from now. So That's what we hope to see.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, if I recall from previous years, I don't think we've heard of an appetite for us to actually do our own projections. We just represented the numbers and yes, it looks about right. And we went ahead and adopted that projection, but that might be something that we might consider in the future if you think it's advantageous to do our own projections based on the studies that so I know you're doing one right now, the region-wide.
Yeah, that's a little bit different. So as you know, this is essentially the state saying, we're projecting, this is where we expect these figures to land. They're not aspirational goals of driving safety
Correct.
down necessarily. So
Correct.
they are trying to align them with the statewide strategic highway safety plan in order to drive it down over time. But
That's
these are
ultimately our
what
goal,
we
yeah.
expect in the next coming year.
Yep.
It's a difficult challenge.
It is.
Mr. Chair, I just did want to thank Mike. This is the first time we've had ADOT actually present their data and their findings. And I wanted them to do it this go round because it is important to recognize that ADOT's efforts are separate from ours, but we're also a partner in what they're doing in the highway safety plan. And obviously we have ADOT here at the table every meeting. It is a partnership. Safety isn't going to just turn because of the efforts of one agency or one improvement plan or our long range plan. It's the efforts of everybody and investments from not just your jurisdictions, but from ADOT and everybody taking their part in helping to drive the numbers in a positive direction. So we're happy to see that they are going in a positive direction.
All right. Any other questions from the committee? Anybody online?
Yes, hi, this is Amirul Rajib. I'm the ADOT Safety Program Manager. So a letter was sent to you on October 25, 2024, indicating that if if you want to adopt the safety performance target, and if you do, can you email us the confirmation? So we are still waiting to receive a confirmation email from you that if you are adopting these safety targets. So I know it's the deadline is passed, but will be happy to receive your confirmation email, because this is the requirement. We need to forward this email to FHWA. So if you think you will adopt these safety performance projections, please reply to us to the email. So you don't need to send a letter. It's just the confirmation email is fine. So if you can send the confirmation email, that would be really appreciated.
Yeah, there is a proposed action here, and then there'll be a proposed action on the regional council, and we can make sure that all that information gets sent to ADOT for their documentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Again, this is an action item. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I recommend adoption of the Arizona Department of Transportation statewide transportation safety projections.
Okay, we got a motion. Can I get a second?
Seconded.
A second. Are there no other further questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Guys have it. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8, Regional Mobility and Accessibility Plan, also known as the RMAP. Jeanette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to also point out that Mr. Credio from the city of Tucson has joined the meeting. So he's also with us. Thanks for joining, Sam.
You there, Sam?
I'm here.
Great. Welcome. Thank you. Okay. All right.
RMAP.
Okay, here we go. Mr. Chair, members of the region, or members of the Transportation Planning Committee, thanks for having us here, of course, to talk about the long-range plan, the RMAP. I'm going to just dive right into what we're going to talk about today. I wanted to also start off with a big thank you to the RMAP working group who met 3 weeks ago. We pulled that meeting together and fed you guys a lot of data, a lot of information pertaining mostly to our model outputs, our performance measures, Title VI. That went through about, like I said, 3 weeks ago with the ask that, that the working group share that information with you all. And we haven't received any comments, but I'm going to show some of that information, some of the kind of higher level points that we presented to that working group. I'm not going to go through every single model output or performance measure, but if you have any questions about anything that you might have seen or anything that I'm presenting today, please let us know. Also going to just point out a few members of our team, Dr. No, data science team, and Yunmi Zhang are here to talk. They can answer any detailed questions about the model outputs or performance measures. As I mentioned earlier, Dustin is here and he can answer any questions pertaining to the air quality conformity. And then Hannah, our project manager for the long range plan, is also here. So I'm happy to have my team here to help answer any more detailed questions that you have. But I'll do my best to cover everything today. There we go. Okay. So many of you have seen this slide or know this information, but I want to start the conversation by just giving you all a little bit of perspective on the land use model and how we're going to grow over the next 30 years. We're projecting 180,000 new people over the course of 30 years. So give you a quick little math run through that I did the other day. That's about if the University of Arizona football stadium is at complete capacity, that's 3 stadiums full of people. So over 30 years, that's as much as we anticipate growing. It seems like a lot of people, but as they trickle in, we'll see where they're going to go. And hopefully we've done our best to predict where we think that they're going to go and how it's going to influence our travel behavior. We also know there's factors that play into our population and things that are out of our control and things that we can't really predict for, like COVID and different scenarios. But the land use model, as well as the activity-based model, are factoring in many, many different things. But I put this one up because population really does drive a lot of our long-range planning. So these maps, and I apologize, our screen here is flickering, so I might look this way as I present. This was presented to the RMAP working group. You may have seen it, also went through our population technical subcommittee. So what we're looking at is where our population is coming in. So those 3 football stadiums of people, where are they going to live? So on the left, we have our current population estimates, where we are right now, baseline. This is where we're at. And then on the right, it shows where those 180,000 people are going to be. We see a lot of that development happening up in Marana, down in Saurita, and also, throughout the region in different places. Let me. Okay, this is the same situation, but with employment projections. So we're looking at the distribution of our jobs. On the left is our current employment estimates. On the right, in 30 years, where is our employment going to be located? We see growth in Marana, growth along the I-10 corridor, in the southeastern part of the region, near the airport and the areas around SR 210, southwest along Ajo Highway, Valencia Road corridor, and a bit up in Oro Valley as well. Okay, so this is our TAZs versus MAZs, and some of you guys are familiar with it. This is where we get into how we're doing our activity-based model differently than how we've been modeling in the past. So there's some transition that we went through between the last long-range plan. We have deployed the activity-based model in the TIP and now into the new long-range plan. So the modeling seems like a standard step in the development, in the process of developing our long-range plan. But I did want to point out this. The new model, the activity-based model, is at a much granular level. So where you see those MAZs, the little orange areas, that's the geography at which we're modeling. So a much smaller granular level to make sure that we're even more accurate in our modeling efforts. In prior long-range plans, we were doing the TAZ level, which you see it's blue, but it looks green on the screen. But anyway, when it comes to details about how we're doing that and the granular level at which we're doing that, Hansu's here and he can answer questions. But it did take some transition, and we believe that we're doing it in a really more sophisticated way now than we have before. And having done so, these are our outputs for our volume. So as we know, volume is higher on higher classified roads. So our arterials are carrying more traffic, are carrying more trips. But what this doesn't show is congestion. This is simply just where our volume is located. On the left is our current baseline. In the middle is our no build scenario. So if we don't do any of the projects on our project list. And on the right is our build scenario. So where will we be in 2055? Should those 180,000 people show up and we build all the projects in our project list? So we'll be carrying extra volume, but it makes sense where we're seeing the high volume. We're seeing higher volumes on our higher classification. So on our collectors, on our arterials and on our interstates, our grid is kind of functioning the way we would expect it. There are some areas that are clear pinch points. So Kolb Road, SR 210 area, bits of Oracle Road, should we not build? But it's better to look at congestion, right? So this is our PM peak hour congestion. This is going to show us where we're really seeing traffic as congestion. So on the left, this is our current baseline 2025. In the middle is our no build scenario. So if we don't build our RMAP projects, and then on the right is our build scenario. So it looks a little congested, a little scary, maybe looking at that middle map if we don't do any of our projects. And on the right, it looks better. We still see congestion on the interstates. We see congestion a little bit on Kolb Road by the base, or not Kolb Road, that's Alvernon, SR 210 area, which makes sense because it's around our employment centers. We also see some congestion around the airport. But I will point out that the map on the right includes the completion of the Sonoran corridor. So that's why we're seeing in the no build scenario a lot of red right on I-19 and I-10 that we're not seeing on the map on the right. So we can answer more questions about that if you have any, but I'll just move right on to our job accessibility by auto. So on the left, our baseline scenario, our current situation, the middle, if we do not build our RMAP project list, and on the right is our 2055 scenario if we build all the projects. So there are many more jobs and more people can access those jobs if we build all the RMAP projects. I will also make a statement that the way the activity-based model works is it also factors in expansions to transit and other facilities. We're not just looking at building the roadway projects. It factors in other data as well. This is similar, but this is jobs accessible with the transit network. This is just our frequent transit network. On the left is where we are today, our baseline scenario. The middle is our no build scenario, and on the right is our build scenario. So we will have more jobs that we can access by transit should we complete, if all the RMAP projects are completed. Now, I'm not going to explain all this. This was presented to the RMAP working group. You may or may not have seen it. It really is just the summary of all of our performance measures. It's kind of small to see on the screen, but if you have any questions specific to any one of those PMs, let us know. But I did want to point out four performance measures that are of interest that might pique your curiosity. I thought they were interesting myself. So we have 735 total miles of existing pedestrian facilities. And so we are on pace to meet that PM. We also have 1,259 miles of bike facilities. That's another one where we're on pace. We've heard through our active transportation plan, obviously through this committee, that we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs and connecting that network. So we are seeing we're seeing you guys deliver projects that help us stay on pace with that one. Our freight travel time reliability, we're at 1.35. Anything under 1.5 is considered good. So our freight travel time reliability is also on pace. And then for bridge condition, 2.4% of our public bridges are in poor condition, but that's on pace. So that number, although we don't want to have any bridges in poor condition, we are on pace to meet our target. Freight intensive employment. So this just shows where our freight employment generators. So the bigger the purple circle, that's where more of our freight intensive jobs are. And then the green area shows 5 minutes to the interstate. So are we able to move that freight traffic in an efficient way? So we're on pace and we're trending, but this map just kind of gives you a visual of where those freight generating employment centers are and our freight network, which is mainly the interstate. So, you know, the one anomaly obviously is up in Oro Valley, the tech park, but other than that, you can see most of it is right along the interstate. Okay, moving on to Title VI. This was also previously presented. I'm not going to go through all the numbers on this tiny table, but what we're looking at is travel time for each of our Title VI groups. And on the top, it's just their PM peak travel time. And on the bottom, it's their off-peak. And we can dive into that, but I'm going to run through the Title VI maps real quick. This is just showing the projects in relationship to each of our Title VI groups. It's kind of hard to see, but we have African American on the left, Asian in the middle, and Hispanic on the right. The next series shows Native American, Pacific Islander, and our disabled populations. I like to look at them side by side like this and then also kind of toggle back, because what it's showing is that our Title VI communities are spread out throughout the region. So those green shaded areas, depending on which group you're looking at, they cover most of our geographic region. So just toggle back between those. And then this is our elderly population on the left, our low income population in the middle, and then our disadvantaged communities as we identified them through the SunCloud portal on the right. So SunCloud, I know we've presented to this group and other committees as well, but that was an effort that the PAG region worked in collective with other agencies to analyze those disadvantaged communities at a different level. But I think the takeaway between these three slides is that, you know, there are populations all across our region and pretty much every part of the county and the region that, you know, there are folks that are going to need additional consideration to make sure we're providing them the services that they need and make sure that they're connected and able to get around. Move over to this slide. So moving on, this is our project timeline. You guys have all seen this slide before. I'm happy to report that that orange star is moving down the timeline. We're here in May and we're in a good place to continue to hit that July Regional Council approval. Our draft, we hope to have that draft available pretty soon. I look at Hannah because we are about to deliver this baby, and anyone who's delivered a big project with, you know, over 100 pages gets real excited about when will that come out, but we hope to get that to you guys really soon. Our approach has been to, you know, bring things to the RMAP working group and to you guys as they're ready, so that when you do get that whole big document, you'll have already looked at most of the important pieces of it. We are going to ask the TPC to open the public comment period at your June meeting. And then comments from the public, as well as any additional comments from your team or from yourselves, can be addressed, you know, over the course of next month and early July. We are on track for that regional council approval in July, and hopefully that meeting will happen at their last Thursday, the last Thursday of July. So I just ask that everyone please start reviewing the tables, the figures, things that have gone to the RMAP working group. We asked them to share that stuff with you. Some of you here at the table are on the RMAP working group, so it's not new to you. But that will, you know, that'll help facilitate a quicker review and make sure that all your comments and questions are addressed prior to that regional council approval. Sam, I see your hand up, but I'm gonna ask that we let Dustin come up and answer Natalie's question from earlier about the air quality conformity, and then we'll have Mr. Credio ask his question. Okay.
Good morning. Hi, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Ms. Shep. So for the air quality conformity status update, we went through the interagency consultation process in November, sharing out our proposed procedures. We shared out again with the interagency consultation group in a memo on April 23rd with the initial results of our analysis. We're in the 30-day comment period currently for that. It ends this Friday. We haven't received any significant comments as far as the analysis goes. Recently, our data science team with the transition to ABM discovered a slight adjustment to VMT that we need to make for the inputs that went into moves. And that will likely influence in the range of a couple percent the PM10 outputs. As far as demonstrating conformity, we're still comfortable doing that. As you know, during the last TIP conformity demonstration, we received approval to use the 1990 baseline value for the interim test, which is over 900 tons per year. We're well under 300 tons per year in all of our analysis years out to 2055. So we'll plan to update that interagency consultation group likely next week about that slight adjustment that occurred to the VMT and the PM10 results too.
And answer any additional questions that we received from the air quality conformity. I believe the deadline was Friday for them to submit.
It'll be, yeah, this Friday.
This Friday. So we'll make our adjustments and then any adjustments based on those comments. So, yeah. Yeah, of course.
I'm just curious, what do you need from EPA? Once their public comment period's finished, is it moving forward or do you need some approval from EPA first?
No, we don't need approval from EPA. EPA is part of the interagency consultation group.
Okay.
As well as ADQ, PDQ, ADOT, so FHWA, FTA. So if they have comments, they'll submit them, but there's nothing required separately from EPA for the conformity determination.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So this is an information item, and I see Sam. You have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking at the schedule here, Jeanette, and I know that the regularly scheduled regional council meeting for next week is kind of up in the air, pending the appointment of legal counsel. I'm just curious how that would affect the schedule if for some reason that May 29th meeting does not occur.
Yeah, that's a fair question. We do intend on taking this to the regional council next week, but it will be as an information item only. So our approach was to go to the RMAP working group first. We also did present to the management committee, but bring more of the details to you guys. And then we'll be giving a presentation to them next Thursday, should that meeting happen. But that review from that presentation to them next week doesn't impact our timeline. What will impact our timeline is this committee meeting again next month, because that's when we're going to take an action to move it to the public comment period and opening that public comment period for 30 days. So the official steps that need to happen to get to that approval is this committee open the public comment period for 30 days. We have that 30 days. That brings us to mid-July. That gives us a couple weeks to answer, finalize any questions, make any adjustments that we need to make, and get the comment responses, out to everybody. And then when the regional council meets at the end of July at their, regularly scheduled meeting, that would be when we would be asking them to take action and approve the document. I can't guarantee they will or will not meet, but that's the trajectory we have for this project. So it seems like we have all of our work done, and this committee's been really cooperative and helping us out, and we'll have it ready to go when they do meet.
I'm just curious, why wouldn't we just move it? Why wouldn't we take that action today? Is there another step between now and next month?
Oh yeah, Mr. Chair, Mr. Credio, I wanted to make sure you guys actually had the draft of the whole document before we asked you to move it to public comment period. You certainly could move it to the public comment period and then we could just let it go out there, but I'm sure that you guys want to look at it and make sure you're satisfied before we do so. But on that note, I do want to say that you guys can also make comments through the end of that 30-day public comment period. So it'll be in your hands and then in the hands of the general public, and we'll have time to answer all those questions.
Okay, and last question, since I've got the floor here. If the approval by the regional council is delayed beyond July, what sort of cascading effects does that have for the region?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Credio, that's a good question. And a scenario that I really hope that we're not in, because, you know, we've put a lot of work into this. We are in this situation with the conformity, with the air quality conformity. We are, once the committees approve this, specifically the Transportation Planning Committee, we move it into public comment period. We have been keeping FHWA and our interagency consultation groups informed in where we are in the process. So we haven't gotten any formal responses from FHWA in the last several months on these types of questions. So, you know, for me to predict what FHWA will do or what they won't do is not I'm not in a position to do so. What I can say is that as we make progress, we're going to take that information and give them to FHWA. We have been asked the question recently, as in the past couple of weeks, and Dustin can speak more specifically to it, if our committees approve the project list and we've determined that we're in conformity with air quality, which we're clearly in conformity, can we ask them to lift that restriction? Certainly, we're going to put the ask out there. We're going to give them everything, put the ask out there, similar to what they're doing with the TIP amendments. We're going to have it ready to go. And then once that action happens, it's in their hands. Ideally, the regional council will meet, they'll approve it, but what FHWA will or will not do, I wish I had that crystal ball.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Paul?
Air quality conformity notwithstanding, what was the official deadline for renewal of the long-range plan based on the previous approval of what, September of 2020 was the last one?
We have till January of next year before we're completely out of compliance. And so it was January of this calendar year, January of 2025, when that 1 year grace period began.
The air conformity grace period? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. And so our air quality conformity grace period is that began that 1 year, and that's the 1 year clock for which we have to meet by January of 2026 to be in compliance with FHWA's regulations on our long range plan timing. So
Okay.
It's all contingent upon air quality because of our population, right?
So the official acceptance of FHWA was probably January of 2021.
It was September, and then we approved it in September. Yes, the
Right,
official.
so FHWA logs it in the record.
Right.
That, okay.
So we
that
have
makes
4 years, then a 1 year grace period, which we're in the middle of. But yeah, for FHWA, long range planning conforming, we have to, our long range planning, making sure we meet their regulation. The drop dead deadline, if you will, is January.
Okay. Just a comment here, and I think we've said this before, but looking at the performance targets and the trends, it looks like we're behind pace or trending away on pavement investment and safety numbers as well. So I want to make sure that that message hopefully finds its way up to regional council so that they can understand, a little bit more clearly where we're underperforming. And we know that there's limitations on how to align investment of limited dollars with those goals, but hopefully if they see the goals not being pursued terribly well in those areas, they'll at least have some productive conversation about how we should, shape our investments for regional transportation in the future. Thanks.
That's all. So the deadline for the RMAP, is it January of this year or next year?
Well, yeah, it's right. So we have 4 years to do the long range plan. And that 4 year clock is because we have the PM10 nonconformity area. Like we have air quality issues. So we have 4 years. But what they offer, what to be in compliance with what FHWA requires of us for long-range planning, we have a 1-year grace period. So they don't say, okay, 4 years, here's your deadline. Okay, you're out of compliance. Everybody's, doomsday kind of situation. They give you a year to wrap it up. And that's where we are right now. We're in that 1-year time frame to wrap it up. So hopefully we'll wrap it up. We have July, and we've been tracking towards July now for, I think, 8 months, 9 months. That was kind of our goal, and we've met those milestones.
Okay. Catherine.
Just because the timeline's up here, and I know it's not the full timeline of how long we've been working on this RMAP. Well, now the timeline's not up there.
It's back.
But
Yeah, ours is
shows
flickering
it's-
too.
I know yours is never there. May 2024. I think we started working on the RMAP well before that. Do you recall when we began working on this? Because I don't.
Oh, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know that we had planned to go past the January 2025 year. So something has happened in the preparation of this. I don't remember historically having to utilize a grace period, and I think maybe that's the conversation that's happening is what happened that we didn't make it in time, and we are suffering some consequences because of that, not being able to process TIP amendments and whatnot.
Or there was some slippage. Do you recall?
Mr. Chair, members of the TPC, yeah, you're right. We did start. This is just the last 14 months, mainly just so that we can put it on a PowerPoint slide and you can see. So there were several things that happened. So as you guys remember, the last RMAP, the 2045 RMAP update was approved in September of 2020. So COVID had just hit. We were wrapping up the long range plan. We land in September. We got it approved. A lot of things transpired between September of 2020 and September of 2024. Pandemic hit. A lot of things have hit. RTA Next has been, a factor. It was a factor in the last long-range plan. It was a factor in this one, trying to accommodate those decisions as those decisions impact the long-range plan so drastically, right? Funding coming in, what's happening with travel, are people coming, work from home impacted things. So there was an effort to accommodate as much as that RTA Next process as we could. That decision hasn't been made, so we had to call it and say, okay, we can't wait anymore. We got to just move forward. We also had some delays with our modeling team, not delays with them particularly, but incorporating the information in those decisions, waiting, and then getting those things done. So there were a lot of factors between September of 2020 and getting to where we are right now, trying to accommodate as much information as we can to make it the most realistic plan possible. And so that's where we are right now. Also, we worked closely with FHWA and the EPA to talk about the grace period, the scenarios, and what's our best options. You guys have been part of those conversations as well. And, as of the beginning of this year, our communications with both of those groups have changed drastically. So we're kind of going with the direction that we got at the end of last year and moving forward, but also with this level of, we're going to have to put this stuff out there to people that we don't know yet. We're sending this up to headquarters and hopefully we'll get those answers. So, it makes it really hard to predict what's going to happen next month in June and in July when we're sending these documents and these asks, if you will, to people that we don't really even know who those people are. So, we're in a really strange situation. We're in a really strange time with a lot of things that have happened between 2020 and the development of this plan. So hopefully we'll hit that July. But yeah, I can't guarantee anything with some of the factors that we're all up against right now. Mr. Chair, I see Mr. Bahi has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you all know I have another obligation I need to get to. So I just wanted to let you all know that I'm leaving the meeting. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jason, for letting us know. Okay, Natalie.
I have two other questions. Previously, you've discussed how important updated household travel survey data is. Still seeing commercials on TV. Is the data, it's still being collected, not going to be used for this analysis, or is it being used?
Mr. Chair, Natalie, that's a great question. Yeah, so the household travel study started last year and is almost complete. I know Yunmi is the project manager. She's here. She can give you exact timeline, but it was never intended to be used in this modeling effort. So we were collecting it this past year. It's a long process, obviously, to get all those responses. We'll get those responses. The deadline for our consulting team, I believe, is sometime in May to finish that collection. And then we'll get the results and process that and fold them into the next RMAP, and we'll use that data moving forward. But if you have any more specific questions, Hansu can keep you posted.
That wasn't it. I do have another separate question. Based on what's going on with RTA Next, it's, is there a contingency plan for what will happen with the RMAP if RTA Next does not move forward?
Mr. Chair, Natalie, yeah, that's $1 million question too, because the contingency plan, right? Like I love to have a contingency plan, and that is a huge factor, as any factor would be, a change midstream. If one of our major funding sources doesn't come in, what do we need to do to adjust? We don't have a backup plan per se. Like, I'm not doing two long-range plans, one scenario if it passes and one if it doesn't. It might mean that we have to do a major amendment. It might be that, that decision lands while we're in the process of doing our next long-range plan. So we'll have to seek guidance from ADOT and FHWA as to what is the best approach. We don't know. I mean, that's $2.8 billion of potential funding. That's a huge funding source that's factored into our finance plan. You guys are all aware of what that means to our region. And if that change happens, just like any other major policy change, how we're required to adjust to that is a question we're going to be asking to our agencies that we report to, so to ADOT and FHWA. But yeah, I mean, I would guess there's some sort of amendment in there that would need to happen, but depending on when that decision's made in that next RMAP development cycle, we'll see. But those conversations obviously are going to happen. And I know the regional council and the technical management committee have been, asking those same questions and trying to come up with the answers. So.
Any other questions? Yeah, I suspect on RMAP amendment, shortly afterwards. A year from now? We'll know.
We'll know, yeah.
Okay, if there's no other questions, this is an information item only. Moving on to item number 9, adjournment. We stand adjourned. What time is it?
25.
10:25. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Tomorrow,